Welcome back. Now, this whole business of doing practices or ceremonies at the solstices, the winter and the summer, exists all over the world. I mean, it was really a big thing with the Celts. It was a really big thing in China. It was not quite as much in India, but pretty close. So this is a worldwide phenomenon. It exists in most cultures, not all. So I'm only going to give you what the Taoist take on it is. Our planet moves closer to the sun, away from the sun. And the ancients had a belief that as the sun and the moon were moving, that they were affecting the energy inside of people. So now, if you did nothing, you just got affected by it for good or ill, depending upon what that energy was. But they had all kinds of practices so you could deliberately try and activate aspects of that energy happening inside you. And so that's it. The whole, there was the whole Chinese thing of heaven, earth, and man. Well, the earth is obviously whatever's below your feet, and heaven is whatever is above your head, going out to as many galaxies as you want. And these forces are constantly combining inside the human body. And one way of looking at it that's actually a bit more practical than the Chinese metaphors is that this will affect your nervous system. It's going to affect the chi that's in your body, as well as the Taoists, as well as people in India. They had different terms for it, but they believe that your mind, whatever comes up in your mind, is being moved by the winds of chi inside of you. Just like if you're outside and it's a beautiful sunny day and you have a very light breeze, that puts you in a good mood. Okay, that light breeze in the Arctic may not even make you feel all that good within us. Now let's make it a strong breeze. Well, a strong breeze can feel nice in the summer. In the Arctic, it can chill your bones. And then, if that breeze turns into, a hurricane, well then it can really mess you up. So you have the fact that these winds of nature affect our bodies, but also the emanations that celestial bodies are having are affecting it, because the Taoists have an idea, and one of the ways it's been called is the body of the Tao, and that is our bodies are a microcosm in miniature of everything that's in the universe. But likewise, in the converse direction, everything in the universe can affect what's inside of our bodies. So these working with celestial events was trying to, in the best way, make the coordination between the big affecting the small, the big being celestial bodies, the small being us, and our ability to affect the big. Because the Taoists did have a sense that human beings had the ability to directly be in contact with what was beyond their physical body. But in China, there was no doubt about it. I would say that from my own personal experience, when I was first learning all these things as a Taoist priest, I took it with a grain of salt. But then as I started doing more chi work in all sorts of ways, and I started actually being able to feel what was happening inside of me, then I found out that what they were saying could actually be physically felt, and rather unambiguously. So whether it was coming from the reasons the Taoists were saying it was coming from, or when those things they said it was coming from were happening, you could feel it in your own body, it didn't really much matter. So now we look at something here. Now, Taoists, when they say earth, they are not talking only about this earth, because everything they have that will benefit us on this earth also has parallels in terms of what you will take and what your abilities will be to deal when you reincarnate somewhere. So Earth is a heavy gravitational field. But the even more important of the thing is that the inside of the earth is alive. And it is constantly emanating stuff that's affecting us. Just like the tides of the ocean, which is part of the earth. They affect women's periods very strongly, and they affect people's emotional moods very strongly, and they affect people. And that has been noticed throughout all of history. Every culture that's lived by the sea has noticed that. So again, this is all a part of heaven, earth, and man. So the big thing about every meditation that is focusing on either using, appropriating, borrowing, stealing, whatever terms you want to use, because there is the old joke, mediocre artists borrow, great artists steal, that how you can have how those things are affecting you and how you affect them. Now, on the one sense, you can draw from the power those forces are giving, and on the other sense, as you get sensitive enough, you can recognize that those things are coming into you and what they're doing to you. Because they can destabilize you, as well as they could bring about incredible visions, incredible temporary jumps of intelligence. All sorts of things. They can go either positive or negative, but if you can recognize how they're doing positive, you can draw more of that into you. And if you can recognize what about it is negative, you can try and do something to dissolve or transform that energy so it doesn't have such a negative influence on you. Okay, now if the earth is putting out something that's very negative and it's messing up a tree, but you only pass by that tree once every 10 years, you might not care that much. I mean, it's very possible. It all will depend upon what level of compassion you have. If you had compassion, you would care about it. But if you didn't have that much compassion, you probably wouldn't. But if it's happening inside your own body, now you're, quote unquote, it's about your self-interest to know about this stuff, because it's going to affect you. Now, as I said, there are all sorts of, whenever you have celestial bodies, there are all sorts of practices that go with each of these qualities. But we're not going there. What we're dealing with now is that we're having an eclipse. So let's consider something. Now, astrologers go on about, or people want to see this eclipse, so you can look on the internet and it'll tell you at what hour you can see it. Because it's not going to be the same in every part of the globe, because the earth turns around. That means it faces the sun, it doesn't face the sun, it faces the moon, it doesn't face the moon, just depending upon where you are in the orb as it rotates. But here's now a central point I want you to realize. And this is much more about many Taoist practices. You don't have to see the sun or the moon to tap into it. I will agree it's stronger if you can. But, the energy of the sun, even if the moon comes in front of it and blocks it, do you realize how powerful the sun is? I mean, it's enveloping the entire universe with its energy. So don't worry about if you can see it or not. Of course, if you can see it, it's a little bit stronger, because it's more like you're getting a laser beam into you. But the fact of the matter is that, you could have it more diffuse, and the sun is so powerful it isn't like you can't draw from it whatever you need. Likewise with the moon. You can. Its energy is emanating, and it's actually coming out, and it's emanating pretty much around the whole planet. Now, in terms of things like the oceans and the seas, then the more direct it is, the greater effect. But when we're talking about a human being being able to recognize this subtle energy and use it, don't get too flustered if you can't see the moon. Okay? But now we have something else. And this is just a metaphor. When you have chemistry, right? Certain things, certain chemicals, if you mix them together, they produce something different. When the sun and moon energies are in normal, most of the year coming into you, they are both coming into you and they are mixing and they are producing massive sensations inside your body. And they are also directly connecting to what is inside you that can manifest karma. They are. So in most of the year, everything I'm saying doesn't require an eclipse, it's stronger. But what happens when the moon makes the sun? You have a light shining on you, right? It's affecting you however it affects you. And then your body is getting used to feeling and reacting to everything that light is doing to you. If you suddenly cover up that light, that influence for a temporary period of time is being cut off. And whatever that light has been catalyzing inside you, because some of the energy of what's inside you is also going to flow back into the light, it now becomes much more obvious. That means that the deeper hidden things inside you now have the energy to start cracking through and making you aware of them. Now, in that process of cracking through, you get experiences. If you're very numb, you probably wouldn't notice it, and if you're very sensitive, you probably wouldn't notice it a whole lot. But also offers you, at that moment when all this stuff releases, you are getting an extraordinary opportunity to be able to dissolve or transform what's in the dark side of your nature. In other words, you can more easily neutralize your karma. Now, there's always, in this one sense, your body is taking in a lot of things. So what is the big thing, you're having this eclipse, moon's blocking out the sun, but it's also doing something else. Because when that energy the moon is blocking it out, it also means that the way that the sun is catalyzing the energy inside the earth, that's being blocked. So it also means that a lot of qualities that are inside the earth that the sun has been feeding and the moon has been suppressing, all of a sudden the suppressive mechanism is let go, and the energizing influence of the sun is let go. And then whatever is inside you, again, it starts coming out. Now, that could do a lot of things. It can make you go weird. But what it also does is that the earth then will give you a great opportunity to resolve karma, or to just tap into the power of the earth, whether you're resolving karma or not. So this is where this business about, here's your funny sun and here goes your moon and that does it. But these two things are at them, especially when they're really blocked, when you really have the eclipse. And it only has to, if you have a giant mountain, you can push a pebble. And as that thing goes down, before you know it, at the bottom of it, you've got one humongous avalanche. So it isn't like that you have to have this opportunity all the time. But what you are doing is you are getting the opportunity to tap into a pebble that can go down and cause the avalanche. And the avalanche is the unfolding, the opening up, the making you aware of the deeper stuff inside of you that most people go through an entire life and never even realize they have. And which meditation traditions always focus on getting a person to recognize this stuff that's really deep in them. Because without resolving what is blocked in those deep things inside you, you are not able to get into harmony with the universe. The universe is in harmony, you're not in harmony. And when the two come together, you'll get harmony with the universe, which is not the Taoist way of doing things. So we have this. Now, the nature of just a regular solstice is that, and now we're getting all this stuff together. We're getting the solstice, and we're getting the moon, and we're getting the sun. And remember, what the eclipse does is it's like, I guess you could make a joke, it allows you to open up Pandora's box. Except it isn't like the story of Pandora where she goes and wrecks everything. It's letting you get access to the much deeper aspects inside your inner being that are at play right now and are going to reincarnate with you somewhere. So if you can clear those out, that's really, really great. Okay? But that's the sun and the moon. The moon normally is radically affecting not just our emotions, but our ability to comprehend what yin energy is. Just as the sun is enabling us not just to get energized, but to actually recognize what the quality of the true yang energy is. The moon will take you to emptiness. The sun will take you to light. So you've got these things going on. But now as we go, what is the big deal about a solstice? Because the solstice does not require eclipses. Sometimes eclipses occur during solstice and it's particularly strong. But what you have with a solstice is that, of course, they tag it to the way, the sun goes around us and these celestial bodies. But the earth always has an energy inside it. And approximately at the time of the solstices, you could almost think of it in the sense of it's going this way, then it goes that way. It shifts into another phase of that energy coming out and the way it's radiating. And of course, the way it's radiating from the earth is radiating into you. And the way it's radiating into you is affecting everything that's in your inner world. Up to and including your moods. So now, this is what a solstice does. And because it has this effect of everything gets scrambled at that time, when that window of the solstice is over, everything that occurred to you during that time is naturally gotten one big boost to manifesting over the next 6 months. Because we got a winter and a summer solstice. We only have two. And the big thing that needs to be recognized is that many people ask, well, how long does this boost, does this effect occur? Well, what you could say is that usually strongly for 3 months. And then it gets weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. Unless you did things in solstice practices to really boost what that energy is. Then in which case it could actually even go the whole 6 months. But that's not going to happen naturally. The solstice affects everybody on the earth, and most people on the earth don't do any sort of practices. So then you could think it's going to go for about 3 months and then it's going to weaken. So the solstice, especially either winter or summer, the summer solstice is about increasing what you want to be in you. Making this as a joke. There's a lot of ways you could put it, and I really want to keep this simple. Let's say you were a smoker, right? Then you want to stop smoking. Well, what's going to happen is that the summer solstice to the winter is going to keep goading you towards stopping the smoke. That's not to say whether you'll stop smoking then. But then this is what you're putting into your system. This is what you want to become. This is when you input into yourself what you want to become. But then the winter solstice is about manifestation. And it's the same thing with the new moon and the full moon. The new moon is what you want to input should happen to you. And the full moon is when it starts unwinding, and if it can manifest, it starts manifesting. So you now reach January, you now do the winter solstice, and you find yourself, at the beginning of it, you're kind of smoking 3 packs a day, and then you're down to 2, then the 1, and the 1 cigarette. And by the time that the energy of that solstice is over, you stop smoking. So you have 2 things. You have the input that something should happen, and then you have the fruition of that input that something comes out of it. You plant a tree grows, but frankly speaking, you don't get the fruit off it till after it's kind of grown. So it's something like that, and that's the difference between, the big difference between winter and summer solstice. So as I said, its strongest effect is going to be felt for the average person. I'm not talking about practitioners, because they're doing all sorts of things to empower this process. The first 3 months. In the second 3 months, it's going to kind of fizzle until almost like when it's gotten to the end. Like anything. When yang reaches its extreme, it flips to yin. Well, in the next one, it's going to flip to its opposite, but there's a difference between planning something to get done and executing the plan. And that is what the second thing of using celestial body is, especially the moon, especially the moon. Because the moon has a much closer felt relationship to people than the sun. The sun affects their thinking. The moon, because of the way it moves fluids in your body, is much more geared into how people think. It's the feeling that gets them to think, as opposed to the thinking that gets them to feel, which is what the sun does. So, for this, there are different energetics that when you focus on lunar things and solar things are different, but that's a bit beyond here. That's later. That's a giant discussion in and of itself. But you get it, for example, where this was understood by the ancient Indians when they said, Hatha Yoga, everyone's heard of? Hatha means sun, moon. They were working on it in terms of your left and right channels and a whole lot of other things. Taoists have the same thing, but I don't think it's appropriate to go into it at this moment. Now, so now people ask, how do I practice this on my own, or can I practice on my own? Well, the basic procedure that's been done in Taoism since I was told in the oral tradition since humans have been on this planet is that you have to connect with the sun, connect with the moon, directly connect with it so the energy of that is connected to you, so then you can use it for whatever. But what the Taoists have always said is that, okay, the natural question would be, can I do that on my own? And the Taoists have always said no. Most people do not have the strength to have their consciousness go out of their body and connect to these celestial forces. So yes, they just don't have, they might have a wire, but they don't have enough wire and a plug to plug into the celestial forces. And that is where historically, whether you want to say it was done by shamans or by priests or by clerics or whatever, the purpose of the priest, the cleric, the shaman, whatever word you want to use, was that they were able to go inside the person who wanted to do it, and through their connection with those forces and through their own personal meditative power, they could enable your awareness to connect to those things. Okay? Now, you can do a lot with the sun and the moon if you just can recognize how it's affecting you And then, okay, if you see it's going to lead to a fall, do your best not to go over the cliff. Or if you can see it's going to go to a big benefit, don't walk away from it and self-sabotage yourself. Yeah, you could take it at that level. When you're talking about true transformation happening, you actually have to connect to these energies. And that historically is what a Taoist master does. Now, some of you have attended my full moon meditations. I don't do them very often, but that is what I'm doing with all of you. I was connecting you with the immortals of the lineage. Because for an individual to be able to do that requires a certain amount of, let's just say, consciousness. You could put it another way and you could just say spiritual power. You could put it a lot of ways. But if you don't have that, doing it by yourself is not that useful. What you can do is that during the eclipse, at least with your mind, do the best you can. And take some period to meditate. And now these are the steps you got to go through, one way or the other. First, you have to make yourself as still and empty as you can. By doing that, you should be able to feel what these influences are in your body. And even for that matter, the influences they're having on not the thoughts you're thinking, but the energy of what a thought actually is. So you got to do that first. Then you just have to let your mind open up as much as you can to what is in the sun, what is in the moon, what is in this eclipse scene. And let that just stay there. Then you have the idea of what do you wish to manifest or what do you wish to put into your system to manifest. And you, in that quiet, silent space, you just let that idea or that feeling form. And then you try and again pay attention. And in that time that you feel it forming, you are more likely than not to feel blockages in you, obstacles. And then as you're still being still, and you're still connecting with what's out there, you want to dissolve those blockages. And that is something that if you want to try it on your own, would be what has always been recommended to do. So right now, it doesn't really matter if you can see the sun or the moon. And of course, it'll be stronger if you can. Just sit, look at the sun. Later on, do it again at night, look at the moon. But the energies of the sun and the moon are always coming into you. Because as I said, it's not like it's a laser just going to that point of geography. It's something that's actually enveloping the entire planet. As a matter of fact, the energy of the sun is enveloping the entire universe, its entire solar system. So don't get too fixated on, I got to fixate, the clouds are up, I can't do it. No, that's not true. Because the energy of these celestial bodies cannot be blocked. A hurricane could not block them. Okay, it just could make it weaker because what it would do is a hurricane would just get the winds inside your own mind going berserk, and because the winds in your mind were berserk, then you couldn't focus on what was coming from the celestial bodies. But it's not like it can block the celestial bodies itself, the energy coming off them. So if we just do this for a few minutes, because usually these type of what we do in Taoism, it's going to go anywhere from 3 to 6 or 8 hours. And frankly speaking, I'll just do something to give you an idea of what I've just said. But I can't do the actual thing because one, there's COVID, and two, it's, like I said, it takes a long time. And that's the type of thing that because a master has to take you to where you have to go. I have no idea, but I don't know if it works over the internet or on television, because in Taoism, these things have only ever been done live. And I've only ever done them live. So, maybe one day we'll run the experiment and see what happens. But the fact of the matter is that this is what we're going to do now. So now just sit, make yourself comfortable. you're going to find it easier to close your eyes, because then everything that's in your external environment is not going to distract your attention. And then just go from the top of your head down to your bottom of your feet. Here you're not only going to the Dantian, because you really do need to be connected to the earth to do this. And don't worry if you're on the top of a 100-foot skyscraper. You know, the energy of the earth is, frankly speaking, goes quite a bit higher than that. So now just let your mind become as still as you can do. And if you can actually bring it to emptiness, that's better. Now the energy of the sun and the moon, it will be having an effect on you. Can you feel it having an effect on you? Can you feel it being on your skin and then entering inside your body as much as it possibly can? Your body, your brain, everything within your big bag of skin. And let it affect it. And when you feel it is affecting you, make sure you connect to these celestial bodies as best you can. Sun, moon, etc. But the much bigger thing is to recognize how it's affecting you. Now, I can't say how it's going to affect you. Now we're into the realm of the 10,000 experiences. You know, people could experience the same exact thing in 10,000 different ways. That's just the way there is so much variability in the human system. So now just let your mind get very quiet and very, very gently. Just be aware of what you would like to change inside you. And later on, I don't need to have questions where someone's saying, well, it did this to me, what? No. It doesn't matter. Everybody will have their own variables on what it is they would want to change. And if you do these things on a regular basis, those things will change. You'll run through the standard 10,000 experiences sooner or later. And now just have the totality of your body and whatever your awareness is, focus on that thing that you would like to have happen. And it will be better if, as you seem to be able to penetrate into that thing you would like to have happen, if the emptiness inside you will grow. Now, you could be doing this sitting for 10 minutes, half an hour, an hour. How about from, sunrise to sunset or sunset to sunrise? That's kind of up to you. That's kind of up to what your internal capacity is. Now, at a certain point, can't say if it's going to be 5 minutes or, a day. All of a sudden, your ability to stay in stillness, your ability to stay in emptiness, your ability to feel how these energies are interacting inside your body are suddenly just going to draw to an end. Now, human beings, if they really like each other, kiss each other as part of a foreplay to another act. But, you know, some people, that thing is so strong, they can stay kissing for an hour before they have to unlock the lips and do something else, whatever that is. And some people can kiss and it constantly be alive for an hour, and then it stops, or maybe 5 minutes and then it stops, or maybe just 10 seconds and then it stops. But there is a point where it's alive, and then it just, let's just say, the stamina naturally goes. When you're doing this with the practice we just said, when that happens, just wind down, rub your hands, take your energy out of your head down to your dantian, walk around for a bit. And if the overwhelming desire to do it again starts coming up inside you, we'll try it again. Same rules. How long do you do it before it just naturally comes to an end? And you could do this as much as 3 times, but there's no point doing it 4. 3 is about as much as humans that is going to be valuable for a particular celestial event. And then just sit and just notice yourself. And that would be something that you could do on your own that, you know, I can mention, because to go beyond that, as the phrase goes, I'm talking out of school. Because there are things that Taoist masters do that, you know, there's a reason why they call them masters. It took a lot of whatever to become one. But that means they have skills. And those are not skills the ordinary human being has. So with that being said and done, if you're getting a lot of questions on the chat, I probably won't answer most of them, but I think that's enough. And as I said, you can try it. Just remember the energy of the sun and the moon, the energy from inside the earth, is always feeding you. Of course, you can make a special moment where now I do a practice and I bring these things into me, which is how most human beings start. But eventually, it really makes a big difference if you just can be aware of those things all the time. But then, that's part of the enlightenment game. That's just not part of, can I have a few tricks that'll make my life better? Well, again, till next time, folks.